This will require development of competence in matters related to the equality and well-being of the work community must be promoted systematically. The objective is a rescue sector with no discrimination and harassment. Although the identified shortcomings and faults are concerning, it is a good thing that we are now being able to pinpoint those, and they are now being recorded so that we can begin to actively, systematically, and systematic work to correct the situation. The aim must be a rescue sector that genuinely promotes equality and non-discrimination in a manner that can be seen in the everyday activities of the rescue sector. This, our action plan for equality and non-discrimination in the rescue sector, is a very important tool to this work. Dear distinguished participants, this action plan is a practical tool that enables us to concretely promote equality and non-discrimination in the rescue sector work. I say we because this is a genuinely joint task. The action plan alone will not solve the observed shortcomings or make the development better. Instead, active measures are needed from all rescue sector actors here in Finland so that we can promote the values of rescue services and they can be realized in a humane, professional and reliable manner throughout the entire sector. We feel in Finland that everyone in our working community has the right to feel respected, accepted and safe in this sector. Every customer we encounter has this same right. With the help of this action plan, we will strengthen trust in the rescue sector and its actors. Trust is the driving force of our society. It creates security, smooth operation, a better reputation and better operation conditions in work communities and other encounters. Trust requires fairness, non-discrimination and equality. Thank you very much and wishing you all pleasant and fruitful seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimmo. And now we still have time for a few questions from the audience or from the internet. So if Tommy, you are monitoring or some questions. While you're thinking about it, let me start. Now, when we have the program, and now we even have the dedicated person to run for it. So what do you see the very first concrete steps that needs to be taken?
If you think about the immediate step, they will be included in the approval of our national strategic objectives of the rescue services. You know that in forthcoming autumn, we will have the necessary political handlings, and then it goes to State Council, and we have a, let's say, general approval goal for our work. I'd say that in every level already a great and good steps have been taken. First of all, our community, if you think about what the result was when we found those improvement points, the result was rather good. I'd say excellent commitment to that work. And for instance, in our National Fire Officers Association and for National Rescue Association, both in the voluntary side and also this kind of, let's say, professional sides, training, education-wise, has taken very good steps and been, let's say, increased a awareness of these action plans and these tasks that we are now trying to promote. I think that the first step has been very, very good. Once we have been improving these national objectives in a national strategy, we will follow that when in, let's say, working together when it comes to personal policies and personal situation in for instance, our well-being regions. So for years to come, I think we have a good support from the action plan to our action national planning and let's say development work of the rescue services.
Thank you. Sounds very promising. How about the obstacles? What will stop us doing this?
Nothing, I guess. Well, of course, the one thing that we all perhaps share that if you think about the gender equality and the sheer situation in our business is in like we said, only 13% of when it comes to gender equality, 13% of our personnel at the moment is let's say occupied by women, and that of course creates a rather if you think about the different sectors in society, it creates a certain challenge. But we have to do in recruitment, in training, and let's say promoting our business also when it comes in the future. This will take to cover a good situation, perhaps years, but we are determined to take those steps, and the aim is clear going forward in the end.
Thank you, Kimmo. From the audience, please.
The mic.
Yes.
Marko Blaas from Estonia. Thank you very much for an important topic. Does this program include only the topics that are important inside rescue service, or it also gives some proposals or views how to treat the clients or vulnerable groups or people you are helping?
Yes, very, very good question, and perhaps I didn't emphasize that enough. Absolutely, there's the idea that the service is also in that manner. You can let's say go through our services, and they should be all in this let's say in line of these objectives. For instance, one of the tools being this national working group that has a task that every legislation, every national guidance, every national major plan goes through those eyes, and with that through that mechanism, with that working group, we look especially from this point of view, how the preparation is going and so forth. And of course, trying to also, let's say, promote in every kind of, or every good preparation step for every service that we are now creating, that we should have this kind of a focus or lens through which we got look into that service. So very good question, and that's a very aim of the action plan also, and also a tasking that national level working group. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Next, Pasi.
Very much, Director General. I have a question about the research. We all start with equality and inclusiveness in different countries, on different departments. Has the Finnish government or the Finnish National Rescue Service done any research about 10, 15 years ago, what the situation was and what we had to improve? Because we all differ in color and in culture, so some things might apply to firefighters and some things might not. What did you do to get to the fact that you have a program now?
The first question, we didn't have any, let's say, national, let's say, continuity with the research and any kind of, let's say, results during the history. Actually, this very close association, the National Fire Officers Association, was in fact one of the first who let's say, had a national point of view on this situation. So when we started this national level work now, the first thing was to get that knowledge. So we had to make a rather wide surveys and try to have the overall picture what the situation is. And our continuous plan is that when developing our national rescue services personnel and personnel policy, we will follow up yearly or twice or tri-year surveys to all of our personnel, and of course look into all kinds of personnel issues, but also including with this equality and non-discrimination point. So we are now building our basis of knowledge, and for so far it was rather much, you could say, thin, but thank of part of our let's say community, we also had a fairly good view, but not, let's say, a studies concentrated on the area so far.
Thank you, Kimmo. No more questions. Thank you very much for your open remarks. And the next speaker is the chairperson of the CTIF Women's Commission, and she has been doing a lot of work in Finland in women fire and rescue services field. Please welcome Mira Leinonen.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to come and talk about harassment. I think that in fire and rescue services, we are pretty good talking about tactics, technical issues, but now I'm bringing you to much deeper topic. It deals with humanity and how we treat each other in this field. A little bit about myself. I work as a senior inspector here in State Administrative Agency in southern Finland. I supervise our 8 fire departments. But besides that, I'm also the chairperson for the 7th year for the CTIF Women in Fire and Rescue Services Commission. We have 42 member states worldwide, and we have been growing for the past years. Even during the pandemic years, we had new member states coming in. So in general, I have to say that diversity, gender equality, inclusiveness are topics that are really hot topics now in fire and rescue services in all around the world. And as a woman in the field, I have been in the fire brigade for 33 years now. I started as a youth firefighter. I have to say that finally these topics are hot topics. It was last autumn that Finland got this Emergency Services 2 campaign. It was built in social media platform Instagram. And it happened so that it was the end of August that this anonymous Instagram account appeared to over there. And it was Emergency Services 2. The account began to gain followers instantly. And it was really professional work, what the host or the builder of the account did. There were cases which were anonymous, and also the cases were telling about homophobia, sexual harassment in general, even rapes. So really tough, difficult issues. Our official magazine, top magazine in Finland, Pelastustieto, was the first magazine that did a story about this Instagram account, and also did a follow-up issue on the same week than this appeared. Our 22 fire departments, these old stories, that all cases on that account were from all over Finland. You couldn't spot which kind of well, which department it was, but our 22 fire departments respond in varying ways. Some were silent, some were telling that we have zero tolerance on sexual harassment. So there was this situation that actually we didn't know how to respond to this kind of thing. And this account published regularly bulletins and made also use all the tools that Instagram provides, using stories, using publications, everything that Instagram can offer. So it was really professional. Then our national magazines and our national media also got really interested in this case, or this emergency services 2 campaign. It has already grown into a campaign because as today there is 150 stories about sexual harassment in that account, and there are thousands of followers as well. Our national television also did a evening program about this, and it got over 1 million viewers. And as you know, that in Finland there is 5.5 million people living, so let's say that that wasn't any secret no more after this. These are the topics that actually Kimmo told you or led you through on gender equality and diversity. So at the same time that we were experiencing this emergency services 2, we were already doing this national action plan for gender equality and diversity. And we found out by requests on information to our fire departments that actually the policies for harassment were the best taken care of. They were in the best condition, but these emergency services 2 cases showed that there were policies still not in real life actions. What I could say that this kind of difficult topics are also a possibility for us to change the culture. If we look in the future of fire and rescue services, worldwide or in European level, our population is aging. We need to be much more diverse. We need to be much more equal. And we need not just to accept that we are different, we need to celebrate that we are different. And I see that this kind of emergency services 2 campaigns are crises that offers us to change our conservative culture and sector. And media is also, this kind of topic is something that media is really interested in and will be following up us. And this will give an opportunity for us also to strengthen the trust that all the citizens have for us when we tell what we are going to do with this problem. Not just saying that there is zero tolerance, but saying what that actually means, what we are doing, and then following what we have done. It is important also to see and hear what the personnel is discussing about at the workplaces. You may do a surveys for personnel. Have you experienced harassment? But those surveys may not be the only source for information. You have to have your hand on the pulse of personnel all the time, and also see what is bubbling under, because harassment is also a thing that it is difficult. We are working in these working groups that are built with trust, and if you experience harassment, it is quite hard also to bring it up, and it creates also the crack on the mutual trust of the working group. So that's why there cannot be only just official announcements that do we have harassment or not. You have to have also the bubbling under pulse view on the personnel. And saying that there is zero tolerance, it also means actions. You have to tell what are the actions and where they lead to. And one of the things in Finland at the moment is that we have a great demand of more personnel. We have, by the year 2030, we will need 1,000 more firefighters more, and 1,500 are retiring. So altogether we need 2,500 firefighters more. And if we are in this kind of cultural situation, it is quite hard to see how minorities see this as a possible career option or a safe space to work and be yourself. So we really need to think also that what kind of image are we giving by this? Well, then as a final point, I said that talking about zero tolerance is just talk until you give actions for it. And one of the actions is that you need to give permission for personnel to talk, to be open, and to encourage the openness and inclusion. For example, myself, I wanted to create a more safe fire and rescue services in Finland. And I have spoken publicly also about the harassment that I have been experiencing, and giving also the talk for the let's say victim or the part that is harassed, and I want to encourage that you can go through it, you can talk about it, and I want to say that I'm still here. So it is important to see that there are still the same persons, the harassers, and also the persons that are harassed in this work field and this community. Then one also with this open culture, you also need to have clear notification channels and instructions, policies. How do you make a announcement, a notification when you are harassed? So don't bury those channels into the internet of things. You have to talk about them and tell the personnel where they are and where you can speak about this and who are the trustees that you can talk to. We need also management training about this. And also when we have new personnel coming in, the new personnel has to know all about these as well. What does zero tolerance mean? And if you experience something, what do you do then? Then tracking is one thing. You have to track how the individual cases are handled, how the statistics look like. Is there a update need for policies or instructions that you have? And like I told you, remember that statistics don't tell the whole story. So hand to the pulse. And finally, what we need is patience. It is so that this kind of phenomenon doesn't occur rapidly or suddenly, and it doesn't disappear like I told you so, and now the problem is over. This is a change of culture that needs time and patience. But patience doesn't mean that you look through your fingers for the problems. It means that you have to have head up high and look for the future, but be patient that some kind of these things can happen still, even though there is zero tolerance, because we are all humans and we humans are different. So, and it takes time for different people to even realize what harassment is and what is okay and what is not. And there are different boundaries for every person in this work field that we are dealing with. So this was the case of emergency services 2 in Finland. I know that through my commission members, I know that our Finnish thing wasn't the only one in the whole world, not even in Europe. But I will be open to any questions or comments that you have now.
Thank you, Mira. And also, dear guests, participants, are there any questions or comments about the presentation? Please.
I can do it. Can everybody understand what I'm saying?
Rather use microphone because there are people online as well.
Yes. Greetings to you, sir. Did you have many reports, official reports for harassment in any kind?
Yeah, we had some, but only some. But the number of cases that got through this Instagram page was totally in a different level that there was. So and this also created a environment that people started to talk and bring up these experiences. And actually, after the evening program, A Studio, that we had, my phone was full with contacts and stories also, because I gave the face for the this.
You gave it a podium.
Yeah.
Another question is if did people on the internet react anonymously, or did they say from which fire department they were and what really happened to them?
There were both of them. So we now know some of the cases, but some of the cases remain anonymous because, well, the account who holds the account never appeared. So we don't know about that.
Were you surprised about the reaction?
Well, in some way, yes, and some way not, because I work also as a chairperson for Finnish Women in Fire and Rescue Services. And one of the reasons that we connected was that we wanted to have a safe space to talk about, for example, the harassment that we had experienced. And so I already knew that there is this kind of things happening, but the number and that there were also rapes, that was the thing that really shocked and surprised.
So it's worse than you thought.
Excuse me.
It was even worse than you thought.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Thank you very much. Have you got also feedback of certain cases that have solved thanks to this kind of interventions? And have you got the feedback of the negative situations that have become worse after the interventions?
Yeah, I have had feedback, or we have had feedback also that finally there is this moment to talk about this. And also some of the cases are now in court process. So we will hear them someday when they are solved. And but also we had, and myself personally, I had also negative feedback that I ruined the reputation of fire and rescue services in these 15 minutes. Well, it was done quite easily, I have to say, if I did it in that short period of time. But it also tells that this topic is quite, it gives mixed emotions. And some of the feedback was that some of the members of personnel was experiencing shame for the first time carrying the uniform, because even though you are not the person harassing, the public sees that, or public doesn't know who is the harasser and who isn't. So when this kind of whole campaign comes out, it seems like everybody is doing it. But as we know that harassment is unfortunately so common phenomenon in whole society. Yeah, so it happens in sports, in music. So we are no different, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Question inspired from your answer. Fire and rescue service has usually been in the society in a quite high trustfulness situation. Has this changed the trustfulness to fire and rescue service also based on this public information about what's really inside?
Well, we have had one poll or survey about our trust level after this, and we were high ranked ever still, but I'm sure that we had a pump on the image of fire and rescue services with this. But like I said, this also gives us an opportunity to increase the trust by telling the real actions and we are taking this phenomenon seriously, and we are doing this and this in order to have a safe space for everybody who are working in here and the service that we are providing. Because also one of the feedbacks were from the public that, well, I don't want to have any rapists coming here to rescue me. So this is also the reputation crisis that we need to build much better now.
Thank you. Thank you, Mira, for your excellent presentation, and some reflections from my side as well. Most of you are chief fire officers, so I think you can share the ideas what I'm telling now. Since, of course, I experienced this whole crisis last autumn as well, running one of the big fire departments in Finland. And there was also like internal communications crisis. How to describe to our 600, 700 employees that within one night you didn't turn into bad guy, that 98% roughly or something our workers are working properly and they are not harassing or anything. So most of the employees are doing a good job. And at the same time, there has been programs for years. But how to change the culture? That's maybe the biggest thing. The culture of realizing that if you are not supposed to harass anybody, the culture that you have the channels to report if something happens, and also the culture in the employer side that any single note you take, you will look after if there's something behind. And also this case, what Mira was explaining as a background, they were anonymous, but quite a few of them came from voluntary fire brigades. It's equally bad, but it's sort of out of the reach of the professional chief fire officer because they are not under our command. However, we can influence their culture as well, and we can make sure that it's not the way how you do things. But at the same time, legally, we cannot like intervene. But I'm very glad to hear that some of them went all the way to the court as well. And about cases, there has been cases in my department as well. And they are studied and looked after and asked and questioned and so on. And what you can do is either realize that, okay, there was nothing, or realize there has been something or something bad. And you can even fire somebody, which like myself, I have done. But that's something you cannot say out loud, that the reason why somebody was fired or something, because it's like personal information. So therefore, it's a bit difficult to fight against the impression that nothing has been done. But overall, very important topic. And afterwards, I feel positive about this media happening. And in media, it has died already. That's how media works. It's flourishes there a week or two, and that's it. But the issue hasn't disappeared anywhere. But once again, Mira, thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to switch country. It's my pleasure to introduce you Marleen van der Kerkhof, Deputy Commander from Amsterdam-Amstelland, and she will give us a presentation about without inclusion, no diversity, experiences and lessons learned at the Amsterdam Fire Brigade. Marleen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation today. And Chairman of the FEU asked me to really tell a practical story. So I don't have too much policies or theories or plans in my presentation, but really a story from practice. And the topic of diversity and inclusion are really close to my heart. So I'm very happy that I can be here today. Switch on my timer. So very nice to meet you. Also, the digital attendees. So my name is Marleen van der Kerkhof. I'm the Deputy Commander of the Amsterdam Fire Brigade, the Amsterdam Fire Service. I joined in 2019, so only 3 years from now. So not a very long history for me in the fire services. And before I joined, I worked at the Port of Amsterdam as a harbor master, and before that I was in science. So I've done quite some scientific research in a completely different field. So I was a bit of a stranger in the midst in that respect. And on these photos, you can see how I kind of tried to get acquainted with the fire services by joining exercises and experiencing the profession a bit. But first, let's go one step back. I applied to the Amsterdam Fire Services in January 2019. So when I did that, my environment was quite surprised, and they said, "Really? Are you really going to apply at the Amsterdam Fire Services? Why?" And the reason was that at that time, the Amsterdam Fire Services were really negatively in the news, and very often negatively in the news. And the news was about the bad culture in the Amsterdam Fire Services, about the white man brotherhood, so to speak, about racism, about discrimination, about sexism, about exclusion, about bullying. There were many, many examples in the news. A fire brigade in which women, people with a bicultural background, homosexuals, really didn't feel very safe. So what did I read in the news? Just to mention some examples. I read about a firefighter peeing in the helmet of another firefighter. Quite awkward. I read about a firefighter dressing up in a Gestapo uniform, marching through the station. Also not very normal. I read about a staff employer who found a dildo in the drawer of her desk in the morning when she started working. Funny joke of the firefighters in that same station. I read about a firefighter on roller skates, skating through the fire station almost naked. Those kind of examples were mentioned in the press. Some of them were old, but some of them were more recent, and well, all of them were obviously way out of line. And because of this bad culture, which had already been there for many years, the mayor of Amsterdam had appointed a new commander in 2015. He was a policeman, and well, he had a quite tough approach to the fire service and to beat this bad culture. And although he appointed all the right issues, but his strategy was to really do this through media. So via podcasts, interviews, newspapers, in all kinds of ways. He hoped to get the political and the public support for his approach to modernize and professionalize the Amsterdam Fire Brigade. And the approach was really characterized by a very tough approach, punishing and sanctioning. So maybe you wonder, why did I apply to this job? Well, because I like wicked problems. I like to work on culture issues, leadership issues, because that is also what it is about, of course. And I was really surprised that, you know, in the 21st century, a public service organization could still be like this. I was really surprised by that, you know, that is possible in such a public service organization, that people were still systematically excluded, that presented as jokes. People were really, you know, harassed, bullied, discriminated. So I thought, let's give it a try and to contribute to the change that we need here. I did have my doubts about the really tough approach of punishing and sanctioning as the only approach, combined with the media approach. But I thought, well, let's see what I can do. Well, and I got the job. Maybe I was the only one that applied. I'm not sure, but well, at least I got the job. So I started in July 2019. 1st of July, it was a very hot summer day. And the first meeting that I joined was a meeting between the Works Council, which is the elected group of representatives of the firefighters, and the commander and the higher management. And well, it was very hot, but on the other hand, the atmosphere in the room was really icy, very cold and very distant and really extremely tense. And the reason was that because of the tough approach that the commander used, well, the works council was, so to speak, kind of a heat shield between the work floor and the management. So there was really, well, I can't say was a war going on after the Ukraine story this morning, but it was really a fight. There was an independent chair who was leading the meeting because otherwise no decisions would have been taken. So she guarded, that the meeting went orderly and did not get out of hand. But there were no dialogues between the two groups, just monologues. There was a huge mistrust between both groups, and there were also some lawsuits already going on. So, well, you can imagine it was really, it was very tense. And I mean, I was used at some kind of tension between management and the work council. I mean, that's always the case. I mean, that's very common. But I was really struck by, well, how intense it was here. So I thought that, well, I needed to make up my own mind about how the situation in our fire services really was. Because I was told a lot of stories about, that I shouldn't go alone to a fire station, and that I don't know how to be eaten or something else, but well, really kind of tough stories. So I thought, let's find out. And I visited all the fire stations in the Amsterdam area. I drank lots of tea with them. I ate a lot of dinners with them. A lot of meat, actually. I've never eaten so much meat since I worked with the fire service. Really striking. And I joined them in exercises and trainings and sports. That's really a good way to connect, I must say. And I just listened to a lot of stories, and these were really emotional stories. Some were kind of aggressive, and some were really nice. And well, it was so I managed to make up my own mind, and I figured out that maybe, well, it was just said before, maybe 5%, 10% were kind of the rotten apples in the basket, so to speak. 10, 20% was really at the forefront. I mean, they were really waiting to be able to step forward and to contribute to the change, but they didn't dare to. And the rest was kind of in the middle. And well, they were willing to follow change. They would not walk at the forefront, but they would also not sabotage it. So, but yeah, this I wondered actually, because the resistance in the fire services organization was really, really huge because of this media approach. And on the one hand, I mean, we saw it in the previous speaker from Mira, it's really good to have public attention to bring a problem out there. But on the other hand, well, there were also really negative sides about it. I mean, some people told their stories in confidence to the commander or the higher management, and then a few days later they were in the newspaper. So people didn't really dare to tell their stories anymore. And also people were ashamed to wear the uniform. I mean, like 80%, 90% were just really fine firefighters, but when they were in the streets, they got yelled at that they were racists and sexists. When people were at birthday parties, they really didn't dare to tell their profession anymore. They said, well, yeah, I work for a government. And that's it. So they didn't dare to tell anymore that they were firefighters. Yeah, so it was kind of obvious that this was not the atmosphere to help to bring about the change that the commander wanted, because the change that he wanted was really, it was the right change. He saw the right problems that needed to be solved. But, well, because of this negative approach, the firefighters, really all of them didn't feel appreciated anymore. And that became kind of a problem, because the resistance became very high against his approach with everybody, also the good guys, so to speak. So at a certain point, it just really didn't work anymore. And the new mayor of the city, she saw that too, and she appointed a new commander in October 2019. So that was like 3 months after that I had started as a deputy. So we decided to use another approach. I mean, the problems were still there. We recognized all these issues and all these cultural problems. So there was no denial whatsoever of the importance of changing the culture. But we did make a few changes, and we started with a new management team. And this was quite interesting, actually, because then you just lose the historical background, which is on one hand kind of a risk, but on the other hand, it's also really a fresh start for a new management team. And we use a new approach, which consists of 5 elements, more or less. And the first one is that we wanted to make the connection again. I mean, really, very basically, we wanted to diminish the polarization that that was created in the fire services, and we wanted to heal the relationship between the management and the firefighters in the operations, because there was a huge distance and it needed to be to get back together again. And a very simple way was just to really express appreciation for the work that they do and the mental pressure and the physical pressure that comes with the job, because that's a fact. I mean, and that was kind of denied by the previous management. I've heard many firefighters tell me that the previous commander had said, you know, if you can't deal with the mental pressure that comes with this job, then, you know, just go and work at the supermarket or something, but don't join fire services. And that's not really fair, because it is a tough job. There's a lot of mental and physical load that comes with it, and it's important to appreciate that, to realize that. So that's one. And second is that, like the previous commander, we were very clear about what kind of behavior we tolerated, what kind of behavior we didn't tolerate. So no hurtful jokes, no racist behavior, no exclusion. And we confronted the people who did this behavior, but also the operational managers, because of their lack of leadership, because they didn't intervene when such harassments took place. And we also listened to those who felt discriminated and felt excluded, and we didn't bring their stories to the press. The third thing we did is that we started to change certain policies on career development, on recruit policies. We developed a leadership program for the operational managers. And we also introduced a diversity target. And we hired 12 people at the same time in a training group, and we give them an in-company training, and then they can join the fire service. And every new group, we wanted 1/3 to be women and 1/3 to be people with a bicultural background. So of these 12, 4 women, 4 people with a bicultural background. And we also appointed some people with bicultural background in the higher management. So at the level of the higher management team, but also the management level right below. Fourth is that we gave a podium to those who really wanted to move forward and who wanted to contribute to the change, because we wanted them to feel stronger again and to be, you know, to feel strong, to speak out and to take the lead in the change that we wanted. And fifth is that we stayed out of the news for a while, because we needed to, you know, to calm down in the fire service. So some insights that I want to share with you after these 3 years. With regard to diversity, really just do it. Just, you know, I'm very happy that we have this target now. There was a huge discussion about it, really a lot. And people were saying, oh, why are you recruiting in this way? Because you need to focus on quality and not on diversity. as if diversity doesn't mean, as if it goes at the cost of quality. Really funny way of putting it. People were saying, you know, diversity is much more than gender and cultural background. True, that's true. But this is where we start with, and later on we will focus on other topics as well. So there was a lot of discussion, a lot of resistance. We talked a lot about it with all of them, but in a way we didn't care. So we just pursued with these targets, and it's really difficult actually, especially to get women to the firefighting organization, to the operations. It's really very difficult. Well, the second insight is that we realized actually that this diversity target, although I'm very happy that we have it, it can also make people feel quite uncomfortable. For instance, I spoke with one woman in our fire service. So she's a woman. She has a bicultural background, and she's also gay. And she said, "Oh, no. I don't want to be your cuddling firefighter that you want to put on every poster and that you want to send to every interview because I ticked the box 3 times. So leave me alone a bit because now I feel like a minority and before I didn't." So that's kind of a backdrop of this diversity target. But there were also other people who felt uncomfortable, like the white men in the fire services. They felt not very welcome anymore. So that's also important to pay attention to. The birds, that is to illustrate the importance of to listen to all the voices. I mean, the bird upside down can be a Moroccan firefighter in the Amsterdam Fire Service who already works here for 20-25 years, who met a lot of, racism, harassment, ugly things, but kind of found his way. But now he feels a bit stronger again, and he speaks up because he doesn't want his, new Moroccan colleagues to have the same experiences. But it can also be this white male firefighter who feels uncomfortable with the diversity target. And it's important to listen to all of these voices, because in all of these voices, there is some kind of wisdom. And sometimes maybe you don't want to hear it, or the way it is presented is not maybe the best way, but there is some wisdom in all these voices. So it's important to listen to. Then the apples, that is to illustrate that the focus on diversity cannot go without a focus on inclusion. And the difference I would illustrate, diversity is that I invite a lot of bicultural guests to my party. So I invite all of them, so we have a very diverse party. But inclusion is that I also invite them for a drink, I ask them to dance, I make sure that they feel comfortable. So it's a step further than just diversity. And if we only focus on diversity and not on inclusion, then we lose the diversity that we generated at the start in the recruiting process. We will lose it pretty quickly because people with a diverse background who join the fire service, which is not a safe place to be, the easiest thing for them, or easiest on the short term, the easiest thing for them to do is to adjust and to assimilate to the majority of the group. Because otherwise, they don't really have a good life in the organization. So they also become green apples. And they should be allowed to stay the red apple, so to say. And that's my last insight that I want to share, is that we focus a lot on inclusion. For instance, by giving unconscious biases trainings. Really interesting, actually, because everybody says, I'm not biased. I don't even see different skin colors or differences. I don't have any biases. And then they do the training and they realize, all right, I have a lot of biases, actually, which I was not aware of. But that's what such a training is about. So we give such a training to instructors and trainers who who train the new people that enter the fire service. And also as part of the leadership program that I mentioned earlier, we also give such training to all the operational managers. So that's just one way to pay attention to inclusion. Other ways are to really have to spend a lot of time on dialogue at the fire stations about talking about the importance of a safe working place, talking about our integrity code and what it means. Because all the policy documents that we have, they're all fine. It was mentioned earlier that on paper it can all be fine, but it needs to, to come, to start living. The paper should start living by talking about it. Well, and the last thing is that we as a higher management, we really need to lead by example, because if we don't make sure that it's safe and that we don't make the wrong jokes, then other people can follow. But if we make missteps, then we're lost very easily. And so that's really, really important. Yeah, these are the main insights I want to share. Funny thing actually is that I talked with my colleague from the Netherlands who has been on my position, I think 10 years ago. And he told me stories about the Amsterdam Fire Service, which are really horrible. So I have the impression that we are on the right track and that it takes a long breath. It takes a lot of time to make changes, and it's baby steps that we make. But I'm very sure actually that we are going in the right direction. It goes with ups and downs, and it's really muddling through, but I'm very confident that within time, the Amsterdam Fire Service will become a safe environment to work in. And then I'm happy that I can contribute to that. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Marleen. Very, very good insights. At this point, are there any questions or comments about this presentation?
The main seat is here. It's easier. With all due respect to the commitment to equality and equal treatment, I still have certain difficulties with this topic. Every group, every leader takes it up, the topic, and sometimes I have the feeling that they just do it because it's currently trending. Everybody is talking about it. But maybe I just did not really realize under which pressure people are who are not conforming the norm. And during my time as a professional soldier in the German Federal Armed Forces, the first gay troop doctors came out. And immediately they were banned from treating soldiers just because their superiors had fear that they might abuse their position as a doctor for their sexual preference. And when I then asked why female heterosexual troop doctors were not banned from treating male soldiers, I was met with great incomprehension. My point is that I have always been completely indifferent to a person's sexual preference as long as they fit in well into the or with the working community like everyone else. In the same way, I have difficulties when a gay colleague or acquaintance insists on telling me that he is gay. It happened that I met a Lions friend, a guy who wanted to become a member of the Lions Club, and he revealed himself to me on the grounds that he did not want to deceive anyone. And he told me that he is gay, and that made me a little bit uncomfortable. After all, I had never revealed to anybody that I was into women. And please don't get me wrong. I don't want to make a joke out of this. Quite the opposite. I think it is terrible that we still have to talk about those topics. And so I can only call on everyone to use action on this issue. Do not allow people to be defamed because of their sexual inclinations. And it is really horrible that in these times that it's necessary to talk about it. And my dream is that one soon day it will not be necessary any longer to talk about that topic. So it could be so simple. Let people who they are and accept it.
Well, it would of course be great, and I hope with you that that is how the future will be. But unfortunately, it's always easy for those who always walk in the middle of the road to say such things, and this is not to be offensive to you at all. But those who are minorities, who don't walk in the middle of the road, for them it's really different, and they meet inequality issues all the time. And that's why I would say let's encourage them to speak up and to say these things, because we're not there yet.
Yeah, this is why we have to learn in the middle of the road that there is something going on, and we have to learn to deal with the topics, even if we are not addressing any.
I was really sorry.
Good.
I was really struck or hurt or touched, I don't know how to say, by the stories that I heard from my Black colleagues who are in the fire service already for 20 years. And the stories that they told me, I thought it would be the really obvious racist jokes, with monkeys and bananas and really, really bad jokes. But it wasn't that. It was more refined, more, mean, and all the time. And it's really terrible to hear these kind of stories. So I was really happy that they spoke up. And then, people who say, I don't even see it that you have another color than I have. It doesn't help them at all if we say those kind of things, because there are differences and they experience it every day.
Thank you, Stefan. Good reflections there. Any other comments or questions?
Thank you.
Our next speaker will speak about equality, diversity, and inclusiveness as a basic and human rights issue, as that's what they are. And I'm honored to call Senior Advisor Mikko Joronen from the Office of the Non-Discrimination Ombudsman. Mr. Joronen, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's really good to be in front of a live audience after a miserable 2.5 years. So thank you for actually making it here and inviting me to this live event. It's much more nicer to see live persons and people rather than just looking at screens in Teams meetings. I will be standing in for the Ombudsman for non-discrimination because unfortunately she has fallen ill. She does send her regards and wishes you a pleasant and very fruitful seminar for today. I am Mikko Joronen. I work as the senior advisor at the Non-Discrimination Ombudsman's Office. I'm relatively new there, but I have a long history prior to this position at the Ombudsman's Office. So let's now move on to the actual presentation. By way of introduction, here's my agenda for this presentation. First, I will provide a brief overview of who we are and what we do. And second, I will make some selected remarks on equality and non-discrimination in the fire and rescue services that are based on customer contacts to our office. These remarks include, on one hand, rights of persons with disabilities in the work of fire and rescue services, and on the other hand, diversity and inclusion in the fire and rescue services as employer. And I'm very conscious of the time limit that I have for today. So there are some slides that I will kind of rush through, and some other slides at which I will stop for a longer period and elaborate in some detail the issues that are put there. The non-discrimination ombudsman is an autonomous and independent authority. And in a nutshell, this is our mandate and this is what we do. Our statutory duties include the promotion of equality and the prevention of discrimination. In practice, this basically means and includes guidance, the investigation of individual cases, legal analysis of those cases, and negotiating reconciliation, training and collecting and gathering information, as well as influencing legislation and the practices of authorities. The Ombudsman cooperates closely with various stakeholders and does advocacy work to promote equality, prevent and tackle discrimination. Monitoring the enforcement of removal from the country of foreigners being deported or refused entry is one of our mandatory tasks as well. The central focus of monitoring is on forced returns, during which the police escorts the person being returned. The monitoring is focused on the forced return of persons in a vulnerable position. We are talking about minors and persons with disabilities, for example, as well as elderly people. Focus is also on deportations that are directed to conflict zones, such as in the past Afghanistan or Iran and Iraq. Regarding the promotion and status of rights of foreign nationals, the Ombudsman has the right to be heard in matters relating to individual asylum seekers or deportation of foreign nationals. And the Ombudsman also is the national rapporteur on trafficking in human beings, and the task of the rapporteur is to examine the work to combat human trafficking in Finland as an independent authority. The aim of the rapporteur is to ensure that the victims of human trafficking are identified and receive help and their rights are enforced. As of this year, there's a new mandate for the Ombudsman, and as soon as the recruitment process is finished, the Ombudsman will also act as the rapporteur on violence against women. And the recruitment process is carried out right after the summer, so we'll start on that new mandate then. In issues pertaining to discrimination, the most important piece of legislation for the Ombudsman is the Non-Discrimination Act. It transposes the EU equality directives, namely the Employment Equality Directive and the Race Equality Directive. The Non-Discrimination Act includes the prohibition of discrimination, which covers both the public sector and the private sector. And the prohibition of discrimination is very extensive. It prohibits both direct and indirect discrimination, an order to discriminate, and harassment, as well as defines the denial of equitable accommodation as a discrimination. The non-discrimination ombudsman is responsible for the supervision of the act outside the working life. So our mandate does not cover issues related to work life. The prohibition of discrimination in the working life is supervised by the occupational safety and health authorities. This slide basically is here to illustrate and show the development of our annual customer contacts in matters pertaining to discrimination. There has been a significant rise in number of contacts that has to do with discrimination cases. A positive aspect of this in total is that it gives grounds to presume that rights awareness of people is developing. They are more aware of their own rights, and they often know where to contact in cases if they experience discrimination. Negative side of this is the fact that our resources have not grown in pace with the customer cases, but then again, that is basically the same situation for all public authorities at the moment. Now, a few remarks about the grounds of discrimination that are most prevalent in customer contacts. Experiences of discrimination on the grounds of disability is the single most common reason to contact the Office of the Ombudsman for non-discrimination. Ethnic origin is the second most common reason to contact the Ombudsman, and health at the moment is not lagging far behind. The other reasons related to the person, that category includes, for instance, socio-economic position, i.e., for example, poverty, and bad credit history. Somebody with bad credit history might be discriminated against in rental housing and not be granted a useful housing just because he has a bad credit history. So that also, the Non-Discrimination Act also covers that type of discrimination. Now into more detail into the specific topic of today. A brief overview of the legislation relevant from the point of view of persons with disabilities. The Constitution guarantees equality of all persons and the protection of basic rights and liberties in sections 6 and 22 respectively. The Non-Discrimination Act provides that the authorities have a duty to promote equality and to prepare an equality plan. Section 5 of the Act reads that the authorities shall evaluate the realization of equality in their activities and take necessary measures to promote the realization of equality. These measures shall be effective, expedient, and proportionate, taking into account of the authorities' operating environment, resources, and other circumstances. And Section 15 of the Non-Discrimination Act provides that the authorities have to make due and appropriate adjustments necessary in each situation for a person with disabilities to be able to enjoy his or her rights equally with others. The Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities was enacted as part of the Finnish legislation in 2016. The rights enshrined in the Convention are directly applicable legislation in Finland. And the Convention, for instance, guarantees the right to accessibility, including to physical environment and to communication and to information. Article 11 obligates Finland to take all necessary measures to ensure the protection and safety of persons with disabilities in situations of risk. And Article 19 guarantees the rights of persons with disabilities to live in the community with choices equal to others, choosing place of residence, housing, etc. And Article 20 requires Finland to take effective measures to ensure personal mobility with the greatest independence for persons with disabilities. Now, the example number 1 of a customer contact that has to do with rescue services. A customer contacted us because his housing company refused to allow the installation of a ramp to the main entrance of his residential building. And the main entrance was also the only exit available to him in any case of emergency, because he was using a wheelchair. When we got the contact, we contacted the local rescue services, and their initial reply was, the Rescue Act does not explicitly deal with the issue of persons with disabilities and their exit in situations of emergency. The rescue services cannot intervene in this matter. Hopefully, the matter can be solved by other means. Example 2. The second example concerns a customer who wanted to store a support walker in the corridor of his apartment building. The local rescue service informed us that yes, it is okay to store the support walker in the recessed space next to the elevator. There was an area that could easily be used for that purpose. And at the same time, unfortunately, we also contacted the Ministry of the Interior and asked their opinion. And their reply was, the Rescue Act overrides other considerations. Rescuing cannot be compromised by storing mobility aids in corridors. The actions of fire and rescue services in these two cases cannot be viewed as promoting equality nor the rights of persons with disabilities. There's an obvious misconception that the Rescue Act overrides all other national binding legislation. It does not. The obligations arising from both the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the Non-Discrimination Act need to be taken into account in all actions of the fire and rescue services. And this is a issue that we are currently working on actively to kind of expand the conception that the rescue services have about their role within the society. And it's not the fault of the rescue services. This is relatively new issue within the society, and it takes time for authorities to adapt to changing circumstances and to individual rights more accurately. About some current developments, the National Action Plan on the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities for the years 2020 and 2003 contains a section on fire and rescue services. Activity number 49 states that the realization of the principle of reasonable accommodation in the fire and rescue services will be examined during the reform of the Rescue Act. It is a welcome reform, and during which our view is that there ought to also be more comprehensive consideration regarding the rights of persons with disabilities and how their rights can be more forcefully enforced and promoted within the fire and rescue services. Regarding the action plan of equality and non-discrimination of the fire and rescue services, the Ombudsman notes that the Non-Discrimination Act and the rights of persons with disabilities are not sufficiently covered. These, in our opinion, are issues that need to be addressed in more detail. And the very positive aspect of the equality and non-discrimination action plan is that it stresses the responsibility of the local units. However, as is clear from the example number 2, it is important that we need a nationwide uniform practices and standards when it comes to actions of local and localized fire and rescue services. And in the new forthcoming welfare areas, there is extensive need. Few notes about fire and rescue services as an employer. As an employer, the fire and rescue services have a duty also to promote equality. Section 7 in the Non-Discrimination Act states that employer must assess the realization of equality in the workplace and, taking into account the needs of the workplace, develop the working conditions as well as the methods complied with in the selection of personnel and in making decisions concerning recruitment. Compared to many European Union countries, for example, our public sector, for example, is less diverse than in other countries. And accordingly, there is a need to promote diversity within the public sector, including fire and rescue services sector. The equality plan is an important tool to promote diversity and inclusion, and it is a duty of authorities to draw up the plan. Concrete measures of the equality plans could include measures on promoting diversity in recruitment, training of the management on diversity management, and outlining clear guidelines and responsibilities concerning harassment and discrimination. And also an important element of the equality plan is that it needs to be assessed every few years so as to be conducive towards effective results. To conclude, promotion of equality and the rights of persons with disabilities is a core obligation also to rescue services. Proper planning, particularly of accessibility, requires commitment and resources in the local and regional level, even if guidelines and standards need to be drawn up on central level. The CRPD, i.e. the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, requires the inclusion of persons with disabilities and their organizations in planning processes concerning the implementation of rights. And in Finland, the regional disability committees have been established for all and each welfare areas, and it is useful and important to also participate those committees in the work of fire and rescue services. Diversity and inclusion in the fire and rescue services as employers is important in many ways. The fire and rescue services have a high status as trusted and important authorities. Their role as a forerunner would be particularly important in increasing diversity within its staff. Representation, it's important that public sector represents the diversity within the society, and we have a bit of a journey towards that end. And building trust and understanding also in minority communities is a key element in the functions of fire and rescue services in a multicultural society such as Finland is today. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mikko. Now we do have some time for questions or comments towards Ombudsman's office or this topic. Please.
Hello, Vladimir from the Czech Republic. My question will be not only just to you, but it's how many of you guys have such a special ombudsman in your file descriptions? States. Okay, minority.
Mikko, I have a question about your presentation. You were referring to legislation and like European directives. Well, most of us come from Europe. So what you were describing about Finland and what the law says, what's your reflection about the same laws all around Europe? They're equal, are they?
Yeah, each and every European Union country ought to have the same level of protection against discrimination as we have here in Finland at the moment, because the prohibition of discrimination is derived from the two EU directives. So each and every country should have the same level of protection and also be applicable in the fire and rescue services.
Thank you. More comments? So apparently some work still needs to be done. Thank you, Mr. Joronen.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we shall proceed with in the seminar with another excellent presentation, and we will hear about Rainbow Police and their work in the field of diversity, equality, and inclusiveness. We will also hear why and they decided to organize their activities and what benefits did it bring. So please welcome Rainbow Police Noora Halmeenlaakso.
Great. Hi, can you hear me well? Good. Thank you for having me here. I'm from the Rainbow Police of Finland, and I put together the title of Coming Together for a Change. Maybe that describes what we're doing and why we are doing it. For the beginning, a bit about me. My name is Noora Halmeenlaakso. I'm an officer. I work in the National Human Trafficking Unit of Helsinki Police, and I'm actually the current chairperson of our organization. So we had a recent change in the lead of our organization. I'm also almost a master of administrative sciences, and I'm not even close to being a master of gender studies, but that's what I do when I have some free time from work and Rainbow Police activities. Our organization was founded in 2020, and we are not affiliated with the Ministry of the Interior or the National Police Board. So we work here as civilians. I'm here on my free time, as I just mentioned, and we don't have the opportunity to use any of our working facilities or resources for this work. So we do this like for free and for fun, which it also is. We are a registered association. We are members of CETA and ECPA. CETA is a Finnish national human rights NGO. They advocate for LGBTI rights, and they have member organizations, so not member persons, but organizations such as Rainbow Families and regional organizations. And EGPA is a European gay LGBT or European LGBT Police Association. So association for associations like us. EGPA is working closely with the Council of Europe, Europol, which is the European Law Enforcement Agency, and also CEPOL, which is the European Union Agency for Law Enforcement Training, and of course, national police academies. So we work under them and with them, and they are really, really good and powerful partners for us because they have so many years of experience in their own fields. And as you see, we are a new organization, and the amount of members that we have is currently withheld. We don't see that. We understand that it's information that we usually are asked for, but it's also something that we don't want to share at this moment. But I can reveal that we're not that big. So I'm not sure if I'm going through so much about why we decided to organize, but I'm going through more of how we did it and what has come from it. So actually the initiative for coming together as rainbow police officers came from the non-discrimination ombudsman and CTIF and ECHO. And it was originally a rainbow network, a Facebook group that was launched in 2018, and later the founding documents for the organization were signed on Valentine's Day 2020. So that was the eve of the pandemic, which was quite unfortunate for us, as it turned out. But what happened during those 2 years was that we gained momentum. We gained some visibility in our union magazine that we are forming this network, and also people talk to each other. So it was like one person telling to another that there is this kind of network. And I'm not saying that we had any issues that caused this movement. It's more organic that it happened. We got together, not by chance, but we didn't do it to react to any special event, for example. But I think that one of the supporting acts or features behind our forming was the political landscape, which actually changed a bit during those years. We got a new government here in Finland in 2019, and with that a new Minister of the Interior. And suddenly we found ourselves in a situation where the Minister of the Interior was actually marching in the Pride Parade, which was a huge change for us. It was also a huge personal thing for me as a new officer at that time to go watch the parade and see the minister, like the boss of my boss of my boss of your boss there celebrating equality. And that was a big change because a few years back, from 2011 to 2015, we had another minister who was openly discriminating against LGBT people. And actually, not so long ago, she was charged with 3 counts of incitement against a minority group. So basically for hate speech against us. And that was due to some tweets and other statements that she made years ago. And she was found not guilty on those charges, but the prosecutor has appealed against the decision. So we will see what happens about that. But as you can imagine, the change is quite drastic to go from that to a person to minister walking in the parade. And I will say that the support that we are getting at the moment from the ministry is clear. We are seeing and feeling it. But the question is that is the police board on board? So the police board is under the ministry and above the police stations, and I'm feeling that they see us and they support us, but there's very little going on in practice. So it's maybe something that we're hoping to work on now that we can maybe meet again and organize some events and maybe do something more than Teams meetings. So what I think that finally happened during those years is that the stars simply aligned, as I put there. I mean that it all just came together. It was momentum gained. People were excited about the cause, excited about coming together. We had the political support, and also there were enough people that had space for this in their personal lives. That was really like also a key aspect in this, because it takes time to organize anything like this. As I said, we are a small organization, and I must say that the persons doing active work is even smaller. And I think that what has surprised us maybe the most is the generation gap within our group is actually a fact. I'm saying that the generation X, people in their 50s, 40s, they are maybe partly ready for this change to advocate for our cause in the organization. But also there's a substantial amount of people who are still being closeted, that they are not ready to come out in the working community. They feel that they have survived so far in their working lives, and also they feel maybe that they have a career to lose at this point. Then there's my generation, who are basically maybe viewing the career in the police force a bit differently. We're not maybe expecting to work there until our 70s, and we feel that we are ready to advocate for our rights. We feel maybe that we have nothing to lose. We feel that the time is right for us to stand behind our cause. And we also feel that because maybe we have so many years of work ahead of us, we also have a lot to gain. And the next generation, I feel that they are more progressive. They maybe don't see the point in advocating for things like this because they shouldn't be an issue anymore. Also, what I feel good about is that they are not the straight, younger straight people are not that afraid to being labeled as gay or coming together with our organization, but also they are progressive in a way that they feel that is it their place as straight people to take the voice or the opportunity to talk from the minorities, if you understand what I'm saying. So it's harder to engage younger and older people the same, but so yeah, it's a small group of like-minded and like-aged people at this moment. Here are our official goals of our organization. So we aim to influence within the police for our own employee status and also for our customers. We also aim to influence within the ministry and also to form networks with other equality organizations. And the goal is to build trust. So minorities can trust the police, because that's not the case, even though I feel that the situation in Finland is quite good compared to many other countries. So what have we done? It's not that much. Because of the pandemic, we haven't had any events or parties or pride events for this year. Coming soon in few weeks. We have had some Teams meetings that we have been able to present our activities, but we haven't had that much to present. When we first started, Linnea pictured here, our first chairperson. She had good relationship with the local reporter working for the national broadcasting company. They did a few articles about us and the fact that we are starting our our network and then later on our organization. Then the Police University College, they launched a podcast series. It was for a project to increase diversity in the recruitment for the school. And they had a series with different kind of police minorities. They had an episode with women perspective and then Swedish speaking and also a rainbow episode. I think that wasn't like something that we did more than what we were asked to contribute in, but it was a big deal and also a huge thing from the school to acknowledge our organization. But then it got even better, I must say, because there is this book that is being used in the entrance exam for the Police University College, and they actually asked me to write an article for that book that was published this year. It's a book for 2 years, so it means that everybody who applies for Police University College, which is the only place you can get your education to be a police officer in Finland, they have to read this article that includes this book that includes an article about gay people in the police and gay people as customers of the police. And it's really an important statement from the school and from the police board and from the organization as a whole to give us that space and to lift the importance of the matter. And I'm really proud of that we had that opportunity. It has been maybe in one entrance exam? No, it hasn't yet been. So there's the first exam where this is being used is actually in August. So I'm thrilled to hear the feedback from that. So yeah, conclude maybe, or there's actually one slide after this. I have to say that personally, why I do this is so I can breathe, so I can work, because it would be so hard for me to conceal the fact that I have a wife, that my kid has another mother. So I have a good, full, happy, busy life, and work is a big part of that. So for me, an opportunity to even think that I would have to sit silently in a coffee room and not to focus on my wording, so that no one would know who was picking up my kid from daycare today. It's impossible even to imagine that I could live like that, or to be a part of any work group as a person who has to hide something so essential of myself. Also, I want you to know that I personally feel the support that we get from the ministry, and also from other organizations and the police board that support us. And I want to say this to you because I know that you are in a position of power. You have the opportunity to enable change, because that's what we need. People like us need someone to make it possible for us to speak up and make an influence. And yeah, it really shows and feels. And I know that we are making a difference. And I know that with everything small that we do, just by being visible, we support the next generation of police officers of different backgrounds, from trans backgrounds or gender non-conforming, queer, bisexual, whatever. We are supporting them in their careers, and by supporting them, I know that we support the next generation of our customers, of LGBTQI plus customers, that they don't have to endure what the generations of people before us in our community have endured. It's it's really personal thing, and we can't do it ourselves. We really do need the support. We need someone to stand behind us and say that, yes, we give the space to these people. We say that what they are saying is right, because we have been dismissed for so long. This slide is actually from the closing line from the article that I wrote for the book. It's a bit melodramatic, but so am I. So I think that it's fitting, because we really do have the chance to do something great with our organization, and I hope that maybe it feels funny because I've heard so many signs that we in the fire, how do you say it? In the fire business? Yeah. We're not so far with the equality as you in the police, and it feels weird because we're not that far, but apparently we are further. So I'm happy if we can ignite something within your community. So thank you for having me. We have an Instagram account that you can follow. I'm leaving tomorrow for Athens for EGPA conference for 2 days of nonstop traveling and networking. So you can follow that trip over there. And also there's our Gmail account, because we don't have anything more official to use. But you can contact me if you want. I'm happy to talk with anyone who might have any use for what we have done, our experiences. Okay.
Thank you, Noora, for your excellent and bit melodramatic presentation. It was very good. Now there's a possibility for discussion and questions. And yeah, please.
Thank you, Noora, for an interesting presentation. I was wondering two things.
Yeah.
First of all, you stated that your organization is not part of the official police organization, as I understand it. But could you elaborate, how does the leadership of the police embrace or not embrace your organization? How is that? That's one question. And
Yeah.
the second one, more philosophic perhaps, but you being the melodramatic type, I think
Yeah.
it's okay. Why do you personally need an organization to tell these things? Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. They maybe align a bit my answers there. I need an organization for this because I don't have the time or the energy to do this myself. We need the name behind the movement. Linna, our first president, did a lot of work by herself for many years to gain the momentum that was needed to get the organization going on, but it only got us so far. So I believe that we need the organization to be taken seriously, also within the police board. And yeah, they do support us. They see us, and they see us because they have to support equality. They have all these like programs for equality and non-discrimination policies and whatever. But as I said, very little has actually happened, and I feel that we are getting more concrete support from the ministry at the moment. And it's a shame because I feel that we could be a really good recruiting benefit maybe. We could be used so much more than what, well, we are not being used at the moment. So, but it's difficult because we are civilians in the organization. So for the organization to or the police board to really acknowledge us would maybe mean that we could use some of our working time for this. And of course, they don't want to do that because then there would be other organizations. I know footballers and ice hockey players are really active in the police. So it's funny that they maybe see more risks in allowing us space, because then they would have to maybe allow more people to have space for their causes. So I see that they see us, but they don't maybe really understand us.
Thank you, Noora. More questions? Actually, I have one.
Yeah.
You mentioned already that you are traveling to Greece and do all this networking and so on,
Yes.
international networking. Do you know whether there are other risk, safety and security organizations within Europe that has done the same thing, like organized the way you have? And do you have cooperation with them already?
Same way as the police have.
Yes.
No, actually, I don't know.
Like any other police organizations either? No.
Well, ECFA has, I think, 16 member organizations all across Europe. So there are many same type of organizations as the Rainbow Police of Finland,
Right.
who are members of ECFA.
But they are not security or safety field, are they?
No, they're all police, I think, and I haven't heard, but maybe this is something that I can discuss during the rest of the week. Yeah.
Okay, thank you once more. All right, ladies and gentlemen, next on our agenda, we are about to have a presentation about the broader societal context that we are in. Please welcome the Head of Communications and Public Relations, Sami Kerkhof, from our office. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you for the possibility to be here to give perspective of why I'm here. I used to work, I've been working in this position for a few months, but before coming back to the Finnish Association, I was working for 2.5 years for the Minister of the Interior, the same person who was there marching in that Pride parade. And then she still is the chair of the Green Party and one of the 5 leading women in our government. So I was working with her for 2.5 years and wanted to share some of the maybe political megatrends in this field and gave a broader societal context to the things that we have been discussing today. So to give you the big picture, I have to narrow it down by saying that this is, of course, very Western-centric view. The developments in other places in the world, such as China or Africa or Asia, are not as aligned, and this is and China is maybe the prevailing alternative societal model, but the West, and this what I'm telling you is pretty applicable in the Western Hemisphere. And the big picture is that we are moving forward. There are developments in that direction that we are becoming as a society more inclusive, more equal, and better for the minorities and more free for them to be who they are. And although there are, of course, and always will be reverse developments as well, but the main direction is towards this direction. And good examples of this is that there are bolder demands for equal representation. It's quite recent that the EU Commission, for instance, introduced quotas for the publicly listed companies, or that you have more stricter public stance to harassment. You don't quiet these things down nowadays. You cannot evade them. You have to address the issues that come to public sphere. And Me Too is, of course, one of the main examples of this development. But having said that, I have to say that we are not as advanced as we think. Finland is many times considered as a shining example of how we have the equality issues solved. And at the same time, we haven't moved since the early 90s in the equal pay. That the women's euro is just the same as it was 30 years ago, or pretty much. So the parenting, how the division of the parental leaves go, it hasn't really developed in decades. And for instance, we are one of the leading countries in Europe when it comes to domestic violence. And this is really a stain in our national picture, but and of course an issue that we need to address more aggressively. But at the same time, Finland is still considered a good country in terms of equality. And there are many things like, let's say, gay marriages have been approved in legislation in just a few years. So the things that we have been discussing for a long time, and now that we have achieved them, it seems like this was always so, whereas only like going back 10 years or 20 years, things were quite different. When I was born, you could rape in marriage and it wouldn't be illegal. So that kind of stuff that someone has to take active measures to make these changes happen, and now they have, but we shouldn't take them for granted. And then coming from somewhat political background, I don't know if you are familiar with the GAL and TAN axis, but it's a good way to show the political struggle in these issues. And usually, especially earlier in the 20th century, the left and right axis was a good defining axis for the parties where they stand in the political spectrum. But that doesn't really give a good picture on these values and value issues, and that's why some media outlets and scientists and political enthusiasts have come up with this GAL-TAN scale, and the GAL stands for Green Alternative Libertarian, and the TAN stands for Traditional Authoritarian and Nationalist. And this gives a better picture of where the political struggle is fought. So it's the green and feminist movements, and then on the other hand, the nationalist movements. And maybe a few of the events that have brought light to this scale have been inauguration, when they voted for Trump and he got elected, and that was considered as the revenge of the working class whites. And there are, of course, other similar events also here in Finland, but you can probably recognize them in your own countries. And you cannot really declare victory to either side. Like now that the GAL side of this scale has won, or the TAN, because you have every now and then you have the elections, and the scale can tip to either side. So it's a struggle that is going to be there for a long time and not going anywhere. And of course, we were discussing earlier that maybe if we put effort and we solve these issues, then after that we didn't have to discuss them later on anymore. But I don't believe in that. My hypothesis is that we are not. If we solve these, then there will be other issues. Like then there's another bunch of problems and societal things and minorities bringing up their views to be considered. So it's a progress that doesn't end. It doesn't have an ending point, to my view. And as I used the word tide in my headline, it is a good metaphor because it goes to both ways. In the US just recently, they reconsidered in the Supreme Court the case of Roe versus Wade, which was in the 1970s, and it has a huge deal, has to do with the abortion rights, and now they have taken the more conservative stance in that question, and now they have jeopardized women's right for secure abortions. So this the tide can go either way, and this a good example is of course also Afghanistan, where they went back 20 years in their efforts in equality in just a few months when the Taliban took over. And even in our own countries, the COVID-19 put bigger pressure, especially on women who had to juggle with homeschooling and working from home at the same time. So this is not something that goes only one direction. But very importantly, this is not a tide in the sense that this would be a natural phenomenon, but everyone in this room can be actively involved and make the tide go either way. And this brings me to the political tantrum that if you want to see a change in the world, if you want to make a difference, then every one of us has the possibility in their role and in their organization, in their community and within their group of peers to make a difference. And have to say that seemingly neutral stances, especially in the cases when you are talking about human rights, they are not neutral. Like, for instance, companies that thought that they could just sit back and see what's going on in Ukraine, now they have being pressed by the public that you need to go and get out of Russia if you want to be on the right side of the history. So the same applies to issues that we have been discussing in this seminar. That if you just want to stay in the middle, that hardly gives you the possibility to stay out from the light, but it's an active stance also. And then, being the head of communications, I want to highlight a few things about the public debate, and it is that social media, especially Twitter, is an echo chamber. If something bad for the organization and it comes public, it gets around very quickly, and it brings up the magnitude of the events really big. and organizations cannot avoid it, the reputational crisis by opting out. That we don't go to Twitter, but yes, but your customers are there, and if they share a story and narrative about you not being able to comply with the human rights, then the story is there, and it doesn't matter whether your organization wants to stay out of it or not. And the only ways to cope with this is that you have a good communication strategy, good crisis communications protocols, and some regular practice with it. And of course, you need to take these issues also seriously. The communications can't do jack if you don't really put your effort into correcting what has been done wrong. And I have to say about the social media and public sphere, what was considered maybe good humor in 10 years or 20 years, it has become, to my opinion, more difficult and could be seen as bigotry. Like something said today may be considered rude in the future. So my suggestion as the head of communications is to use only good-natured humor and to avoid reinforcing stereotypes. So that's pretty much, if you follow that, then probably you won't have any skeletons from there on. And then building a good reputation. The Finnish police is a good example. They can take a hit, they can take 5 hits, they can take 10 hits, but then you have to have active effort in correcting those hits, or otherwise it will deteriorate in the long run the public trust, that is really essential for the authorities to work in their societies. So take good care of it. And you don't need to get involved in all the discussions, and God helps, Twitter has them. But if you have values, then you should follow those values and act accordingly. And then those values will give you answers whether to take a stance in certain debate or not. And because I was thinking that maybe I can give some perspective of the future developments. In Finland, at least, we are in the phase of struggle for the best people that come to our work. As brought up here, we are lacking 1,000 firefighters and then have 1,500 more retiring. So we need the best abilities, and you have to attract those with a good reputation. And Europe is growing old, and working age people are getting more diverse. So you also, this is not just the question of genders, but also ethnicities. But yeah, there was my pitch.
Thank you, Sami. Any comments or questions to Sami? Thank you for the presentation. Dear friends, this seminar is getting close to the end, but not quite yet. We have one presentation coming up, and then we will look through the draft of the statement, and then some small further discussion. But first, let us hear a presentation from the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health, and we have a top expert about equality. Please welcome Deputy Director Tanja Auvinen on the stage.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the invitation to come here. It's nice to be here. So there's a room full of people and also 17 online. That is a good number of participants. So my name is Tanja Auvinen, and I'm actually not a deputy director. So I think I have been a deputy for my boss at some point, and that's why there was an old title. But I'm a director of the Gender Equity Unit, and so our unit is based in Ministry of Social Affairs and Health, and our responsibilities are coordinating the gender equality policies of the government in Finland and also developing gender equality legislation, which is mainly the law about the equality between men and women. That's the name of it. But of course, also other legislation, we give our opinions and we develop them together with other experts. But this is our main task. And also we do gender mainstreaming, which basically means that we try to help other government agencies and experts to include gender perspective in their work and equality perspective. And I saw from the program that you already had Kristina Stenman here to speak about the anti-discrimination, which is because we deal with gender. So we deal with equality of the genders, men and women, and also other genders. So, for example, discrimination based on gender identity or gender expression is prohibited in the legislation that we develop. But then also, of course, there's ethnicity, health. There's also sexual orientation, all kinds of other issues that we deal the government as a whole. But that's why I'm trying to sort of frame my presentation, because I'm talking about gender equality in this presentation, and especially I think sexual harassment as a focus, because that's also included in the Gender Equality Act. And I'm sorry I wanted to come here when this seminar started, because I would have liked to hear all the presentations, but as it seems, it's difficult to leave for a vacation because you have to work extra hard, and I really hope that my summer vacation will be worth it, having these meetings, but the seminar is very nice. Okay, so I was thinking about what to talk about here, and I was thinking like I would sort of do the framework of the legislation, because I think that is very important. It all starts from the legislation. And in my opinion, I have been active in organizations, and I've been an employee for 25 years in different organizations. I've been a volunteer in organizations. I have started a organization. So I know how bad it sometimes is, like how actually employers don't know what they're supposed to do, or they don't know about legislation. And I think that's sort of the starting point. You have to know the legislation. And then it's about leadership. I mean, we can talk about on an individual level what to do and what not to do, and that's also important. But it's the leadership's responsibility to stop the kind of behavior that we don't want on the workplace. So it all comes, in my sort of thinking, it all comes down to, of course, from the perspective of government employee, it comes to the legislation and then leadership. So let's see. I have like boring PowerPoints about like legislation, but we don't have to concentrate on that. I just want to get the message through. So we have legislation about, when you think about gender equality and especially sexual harassment, we have legislation. We have Occupational Safety and Health Act, työturvallisuuslaki, which is clear, so that employers don't tolerate harassment in the workplace. And it's quite comprehensive. But again, I think Occupational Safety and Health Act is quite known amongst the employers. I don't know about employees that much. And then of course, each countries, you that come from other countries, I'm pretty sure that each country have their own legislation that deals with these issues. So, but you just have to know about it. Then we have, and this, of course, these are examples from Finland. We also have the Act on Equality Between Women and Men, as I mentioned before, and there's a lot about sexual harassment in Section 7 and 8D. So this should be the basis knowledge when you work as a boss or some kind of supervisor in the workplace. And it's also good to know as an employee, because then you can defer to your rights if something happens. And my title for the presentation was strategies. And of course, as people, we understand strategies differently in different ways. They can be different things. They can be action plans or like a thinking how to get to your target, like in different ways. I think also it's a strategy to know the legislation and also act based on the legislation and also disseminate that information on the workplace about the legislation. So I think it's actually also a strategy and its implementation to have a very strong base on that. We also have a gender equality plan in our, I should check on the time too, on our legislation. So all the employers that have at least 30 people in the organization, they have to draft a gender equality plan. And it has to be prepared in cooperation with the jobs divided, the elected representative, the staff basically. So it has to be inclusive. And we also have this plan in our anti-discrimination legislation. So you actually have to do like both gender equality and anti-discrimination plan. I'm sure maybe Christina told about that. And this is a tool. It's not like I see it. I don't see it as a restriction or a bore. I see it as a tool to develop the well-being and also the, you could say, productivity of the workplace. Because when you have like a clear basis on how you work and what to tolerate, that helps the whole work environment. The plan has to have certain things in it. It has to have the assessment of the gender equality situation in the workplace. So already this is something that you can take your staff and talk about, draft the plan together, include everybody, and also make everybody responsible for the situation in the workplace. So this works like this works for the whole organization. You also have to plan necessary measures, how to get there, how to get to the target, whatever that is. Well, of course, it has to do something with gender equality, but like how to get there. So this is also like a very good way to commit people in the process together. And then also a review of the extent to which measures previously included in the gender equality plan have been implemented. So this is a very comprehensive plan if you do it well. But I have to say, like, not so many organizations do this well. They might do it in a very minimum level, which is like copy paste some numbers of how many people, how many men, how many women, what the pay level is maybe. Well, pay is sort of like discrete, so maybe not that, but also it should be included. But it can be also done very poorly. I've seen some really bad examples of big organizations having like really bad gender equality plan. But I would say that this is like this could work as a motivation tool, which is I think really good. So, and of course, if you don't have this legislation, you can always have your own tool. You can create a plan. And this is something that has become, we have been setting up these roundtable discussions on sexual harassment this government period. After Me Too happened, our government minister, the minister responsible for gender equality minister, took up on this task, and he started with other cabinet ministers organizing these roundtable discussions. And some of you have been there also present. And the idea is to really think about these issues and develop strategies. And one of them is that you can do so much just when you have the right will, but how to get there, that's really important. So this is the gender equality plan. But then about leadership, and this is just a note basically for myself, but I think the basis for all the work is to educate yourself, especially if you're in a leadership position. You have a special responsibility, and you have to know what you talk about. And it's okay not to know, because there's always room to learn. You can always find out. You can always read. You can educate yourself. There are many organizations, many instances that actually come to your workplace and educate you. So that's not a problem, and it's not a shame to not know. And then when you educate yourself, you can educate others. And of course, lead by example. Like, I don't know how to say it, but well, I do, but you can only lose trust once. And if you do it really big, like if you really do something or say something not appropriate, or you don't act when you see something, that's trust lost once, and that's enough. Very often, it's very hard to gain that trust back, and that's why you have to, from the beginning, create a atmosphere that everybody can feel that they are appreciated, they are not harassed, and there is trust among the people, and that is so important. And this comes up when we have this discussion, these roundtable discussions with the experts. And this is also, I previously worked with issues like violence against women. This comes also from the victims of personal violence. It's so important to have that, and also victims of harassment. It's so important to have that trustworthy atmosphere in the workplace. And Sami mentioned here before that we are all competing for the best workers in the future. I don't know how you do that without half of people missing in that picture. For example, when you talk about harassment against women, that's really difficult. So lead by example, there's no other way. I'm talking about leadership here. Of course, this applies also to employees, because you can be the change in the workplace. You can be the motor for better, and don't be a bystander. Bystander is a very common name or like concept, let's say, when we work with issues like violence, harassment, exploitation. And that's when you see something and you don't act on it, and that's really difficult not to be a bystander, actually. When you hear like something obnoxious, or not even that, like something stupid, and it's really hard to say hey, that's not okay, or even go further, like, hey, what you are talking about, like to take action. And I, like myself, like I have actually practiced how to say, like out loud with myself, how to say, hey, that's not okay. So because very often when you hear something, or when you witness something that is not okay, it might like sort of shut you down, or you're sort of paralyzed or whatever. And so it's very important that your instincts kick in. But this is not instinctive. This is something that you can learn. And that's why I have practiced like out loud with myself, like, hey, that's not okay, with different voices, depending on the situation. So it's really little steps, and it might sound ridiculous, but I don't know. I think most of us have been in the situation where we think in our head like, like I wish they hadn't said that, or I wish, like I wonder if I should have said something, and how many have said something. I myself have been in a situation where I have not said anything. I have been a bystander, and I don't want to do that anymore. And I think that is something, it's not something only individual choice, it's something that we have to learn at the workplace to not do. So I think this is basically the basis that I wanted to say. I wanted to sort of combine the legislation and the leadership, and that's all, of course, also only one of the aspect of the whole inclusiveness, which I hear sort of, I talk about sexual harassment a lot, but it's part of the whole inclusiveness, and you can sort of change the concept with almost anything that works with like anti-discrimination. So that is easy. But of course, like I would go back to the leadership. That is really important. And then as leaders, as influencers in the workplace, we have to take the responsibility and basically show the way, and not be a bystander, and take action whenever that is needed. So this is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanja Ouvinen, Director. That was very okay. And now there is a possibility for questions or comments towards Tanja. Seems like a very comprehensive presentation and very good as well.